In this video, we will learn how to create this dirt ball or mud ball, which has this, particles moving around it. It's very easy to make, so let's get started. And if you watch the previous videos, which is this dark purple energy kind of orb, then we did water aqua orb, then we did like a plasma energy kind of orb, then we did like a sun or lava kind of orb, and today we'll do this one. You could even see how this looks. So again, I will be providing this file on my Patreon for free. Also, if you go to my website, which is like a work in progress website, you could go to this orb collections and find all the textures and links that I will be using. It would have all the textures for like all the 5 of them. And in future, if I keep adding more of these orbs, then I will keep adding it like down. So again, I have to change, the videos and all in here when I post it. I will also be adding texture, so you could do like this, like download the texture whichever you want, and then I will be using third-party textures for this one, which is like free CC0 textures, which I'll also link there. It's by Screaming Brain Studio. It's free. You can find the textures that are made by me. Like these textures are made by me. It's all CC0, so none of them are paid. You can use it for personal or commercial. So let's get started. First of all, we need a mesh. I'll just drag this mesh. It's just a basic sphere. It is just a basic sphere, just a basic UV sphere, which goes like this at the top. You could create it from the modeling tools, or just go in your shape, use sphere, or just import it from Blender. Let's create a material. Okay, let's create a material instance, MI, so that we can create variations. And always use material instances so that you could play around with parameters and such. Then let's go to the master material, turn this roughness to 1, specular to 0. I will try to be a bit faster because in the previous videos I do go in much more depth. So if you want to learn a bit more in depth, just watch the other videos. We are using the same stuff, just slightly different techniques. So first thing first, we need a texture. So you can hold T and do left click or just search for texture sample. So if you download that file by the Screaming Brain Studio, it would be available in like 512 by 512 turbulence, and it's this one. Okay, turbulence 11. If I add it to the base color and emissive, we get this texture like this. Now if I use spanner, if you hold P and do left click, it takes spanner. If I do 0.1, it basically would move up. But if you look at this texture, it is now going from this diagonally, right? So if we move it in the same direction, you can see if we move it in the same direction as this diagonally, it gets this nice effect. If there was a texture something like this which goes up, then it's better if you move it up only like this. So it really comes down to the texture that you use. Okay, so this one diagonally usually works better for me, so I use those. Now if we take another texture, or not another texture, like we duplicate this, and let's see if I multiply both of them and then add it in here, nothing's going to happen because we are currently moving both of them at the same speed. So instead of this going at the top right, I'll make it go at the bottom right like this. So let's do negative 0.1, and we get this stuff like this. So what actually happens when we multiply is, in this texture, if we take, let's say, a color ramp, 0 is black, white is 1, and anything in center would be like 0.5, so 0.1, 0.2, 0.5. So a texture is nothing but just values. So at this pixel point it might be 0, here it could be 1, here it could be 0.5, and like that. So what we are basically doing right now is we are multiplying with each other. So what multiply basically is doing is it's multiplying this point with this point, this point with this point. So basically each pixels are multiplying with the same location. So as black is 0, anything multiplied by 0 would give us 0, which means that we will get black. It's how we create mask. I have this video on shader VFX fundamental and techniques, which would explain to you in much more depth if you want to understand how the multiplication, addition and all that stuff works. Now if we use lerp, Let's connect it this way. You would take control to kind of move it like this. And what lerp basically does is that if we have two colors like blue and pink, if I select it in A and B, if the alpha is 0, it will use this. The alpha is 1, it will use this. If we do 0.5, it will be a mixture of both of them, like half of this, half of this. So when we provide it with the texture, we are basically providing it with like 0 and 1 values at different locations. So if I take two colors again, let's convert this to parameters, like color 1, color 2. Let's add it to RGB, and let's do brown color, and let's do another brown color. Like one should be like very dark. Okay. Right now let's just use, I guess I'll make this one. Okay, let's just keep it this way. I'll use different color, or I'll play around with the colors a bit later. Now what I want to do is, if you look at this one, and I've done this thing on all the other one, that is when there's an orb, we want to create a glow around the edges, else it looks like very flat. Okay, so this is the colors that I temporarily used, like this one, and look at this one. Okay, what we want is a rim light, and the way we create rim light is by using Fresnel. So if I add Fresnel, this is what we get. We get 1 at the edges, we get 0 at the center. So as it goes in middle, it will go to 0. So again, all we simply need to do is, if we use a power node after this, okay, if we use a power node, so let me show this. So Fresnel and then power node, it basically creates this nice contrast. Okay, so right now I'll just do this as 2. So it basically increases the Fresnel, but if I do power, we can play around with this. So you could play around with the values until something looks nice to you. So I'll do 2 and 3. I think that looks good enough. And then if we multiply this to, what do we get? We get the edges. Why? Because this is 0 and this is 1. So anything multiplied by 0 would give us 0, which is black. Anything multiplied by 1 would give us the full color, and anything multiplied by 0.5 would give us like half of it. So we get like this nice edges, looks pretty cool. And then what we can do is, we want to simply use this and add this one like on top of it. So if we add both of them like this, we have basically added this one on top of it, but you could see no difference is showing. And that is simply because we are now multiplying this, like this is 1, right? Or I think it's more, like it's 3, so it should be more, it should be 3, I believe. So if we add this on top of it, it's not showing much difference. So we can increase this intensity. So if we multiply this by 20 and then preview this, we can see that the intensity is increased and we can see the effect. And then let's add it to the emissive, and we get this effect at the edges. Again, we need to play around with the colors again until it looks good enough. Now what I will do is, I'll promote this to a parameter and call this as, I guess, Fresnel intensity, so that we can play around with this, with our parameters later. You could even create parameter in like Fresnel power, Fresnel exponential, like to convert this to a texture parameter and call it like smoke texture, both of this. You could even create tiling for here, speed for here, and speed for here. I'm not going to go in that much depth. You could even see in the original one, I've created it. Like I've created UV tiling, and then I've created like speed options so that we can change with parameters and such. But I'm just going to show this stuff, and then you could play around with the parameters. It's like very basic creating parameters just like this. Next thing you would see is, there is some distortion happening. I think it's much more visible in here, like distortion. So we'll create the distortion first, and then we'll play around with the colors. So to create the distortion, we will use world position offset. I actually have a detailed video on it called animated mesh with materials, Unreal Engine 5 world position offset. You could play around with it. You can watch this video to go in much more depth, but this is how we basically do. What we are basically doing is, we are moving these vertices. Okay, if you take a texture, I will use my noise texture. I'll provide all these textures in description. Okay, in my website. I mean, what is this? Like basically zeros and ones, right? On the orb. So if you add it in the world position offset, it's not going to show much difference because it's only going to move by 1 centimeters, and that is like not much noticeable. And it also depends on how much vertices are there. For my effect, it's not many vertices, so it's not going to look that crazy distortion, but I also don't really want that much. So if I go in here, multiply this, so it's 0 to 1, right? So if I multiply 20, if I remove this, that's too much. Let's do apply, and you could see the distortion happening, but it's not looking good. If I do 20, you could see the distortion looks very off. And again, what it's basically doing is that wherever there is one fully white, it's multiplying by 20, so 20 centimeter of difference. Wherever there is 0.5, half of it, so 10 centimeter. Wherever there is black, 0, because 0 times 20 is 0. So another issue is right now it is not working perfectly, because I don't know the exact reason, but I think it just does it in all one direction. So instead of doing it in outside, it just does it in one single direction. So what we need to do is we need to get the vertex normals. Vertex normals are nothing but this stuff. Like you could see these points which are facing away from it, and we need to multiply it with this one. So we multiply both of this and then add it. That way it is like distorting now away from it, away from the texture, away from the mesh, I mean. And now the distortion is like this. Make it 10, make this pan, and we get the distortion effect. Okay, you could see. Again, you could also convert this into parameters. Okay, so add some tiling and then speed for speed too. Okay, if you don't know how to create parameters for two of the stuff, you need to create two scalar parameters and do append vector and then connect it like this. That way this one would be for X speed, this one would be for Y speed. If I show you this material instance that we created, again I didn't create parameter for everything, right? So right now I just only created parameters for, you could see, like just this stuff. So this edges, and let's play around with colors. What I'll do is, instead of trying to find good colors, I'll just use the one that I've made around here. So the base color is going to be this one, and the smoke color is going to be this one. And you could see it is starting to look good. The edge is still not looking good. Why is that? Okay, I think the edge is not looking good. I don't like how edge is looking. Multiply by 5 and then add it. I think it's because we are adding in base color, maybe. Let's do unlit. Nope, that's not the reason. I don't like how my edge is looking. So what we can do is, instead of multiplying it this way, let's multiply this with a color instead. So like outer color, RGB. So again, we are just multiplying this texture, this Fresnel, with a color. Okay, so I'll just copy the one that I've used. It is this color, which is 50 value, which means I'm making it be much more glowy. Wait, not this one. So I'll use this outer glow color. You could see the values. Let's copy and basically, can I paste it in here? I don't know. Okay, I can paste here. So you could see the colors that I'm using. Okay, I do like it. So instead of doing with this texture, we are just adding a different color completely. And then we can reduce the intensity. I am going a bit faster because I already created other videos, okay, which go in much more depth. If this looks better to you, then the reason for that is simply because I played around with the values a bit more. But again, you can download these files and compare it with this stuff, because it's the same stuff that I've done. Okay, nothing's different, everything is same. It's just I have to play around with the values, the speed and all, to make it look nicer. So let's create a Niagara system, empty, ns underscore mudball or something. We are going to do the same stuff that I've been doing for the last 4 videos. Add a minimal emitter, remove this sprite render, and we will use a mesh render. Our mesh is going to be this SM sphere, just a sphere mesh, and we'll say that we want to use a different material, which is our this material MI. Nothing showing up because we are not spawning any particles. So in our emitter update, we'll do spawn burst instantaneous only 1. I only want to spawn 1. In the particle state, which is on the update, I'll say that do not kill. Okay, so you do not destroy this when this particle's lifetime. So let's say if I click this and if I reduce it to 2, so lifetime 2 seconds, it just disappears. And after 5 seconds, it pops up back. Why? Because it is set to infinite with 5 duration in here. And it is using the system 1. So which means it's using this system 1. So every 5 seconds it will spawn, but it will only last for 2 seconds. I don't want that, so I'll say that lasts forever. But another thing is, because it is not dying, it is lasting forever, it might start spawning multiple of it on top of each other. I don't know if it will be visible in here. Let's see. You could say it's not following our gizmo like this. So you need to go in here and say that it's a local space. That way it will follow it. So I don't think it's noticeable, but because we have set it to not die, what's going to happen is every 5 seconds as it's looping, it's going to spawn one of it. So every 5 seconds spawning on top of each other, but we are not seeing it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go to minimal emitter and say that instead of using this system, use self and only do it once. So it will only spawn it once and it will not be stacking it on top of each other. So it will not be using this infinite. Okay, also let's do GPU and fixed. This is only required if you want to do some collision and stuff. Let's do like 5. I think that was like too much before, but this looks good enough, like slightly. Another thing is, if you go at the top, you will see this effect, right? We don't want that. So let's go to the mesh render and say that facing mode should be camera. That way it always faces us. So even if we go up, it's always facing us. If you want to rotate it, you could even do rotation from here. Okay, so that it's like this. Let's say if you do something like this, it will always face this middle area to you. Let's add the smokes. Let's do GPU fixed. Let's do spawn rate. So instead of burst rate, I want it to be constantly spawned. Let's do 10. And if I isolate this, you would see it spawning inside of it. So I don't want it, I want it at the edge. So at this particle spawn, I'll say that shape location, do shape location. And it's a sphere, I want it to be at the edges of it. So, or not at the edges, but at the surface, like this. Let's reduce it maybe 50. Yeah, I think that looks good enough. Now I want it to be smoke, right? Obviously. So let's change this sprite material. So let's get material smoke, like mud smoke or something like this. So we need to create a material. Let's do 1 0 unlit and additive. So basically we are adding the color on the background. So when you do additive, any black color is considered as 0, right? So that's like adding 0. So nothing would be showing because we are adding 0 and on the background. So just keep that in mind. You cannot have black color in additive. We will use a texture, a smoke sprite. This one, I will provide it in the description. On my website, it's 3 by 3 of smokes. I created the smoke from this like Mabius box, GitHub IO. In the smoke somewhere, there's somewhere smoke in here, I don't remember. And then I created like sprite sheet from here. It's free to use. It's 3 by 3. You could just download this texture if you want. It's not a sprite sheet where it's animating perfectly. It's just 6 different patterns. Okay, so it will not animate perfectly if you do like 1 2 3 4 5 6 like this. So just keep that in mind. We will add this around here. Now I also want to control the color with particles. So whatever we add in here, like here, so color mode, if I let's say turn this to pink, it should look pink, right? But if we connect it just this much, it would not be able to control the material from here. I can even show you quickly. So right now I'm using smoke. You can see even though I've set here to be pink, it's not showing because this is where it sends the data from. So if we take the particle color, multiply this RGB with our texture, we will get this one. So let's do apply. You will see it now looks pink, but I'll also connect it with alpha. So alpha, and make sure you connect R, okay, not A channel, because it's a black and white texture and there is nothing in the A channel, you could see. So this is basically just a node which is like take whatever is coming from here and pass it through here. Let's save this. Okay, now it's 3 by 3, so we need to go to sub UV in sprite renderer and say that it's 3 by 3. And if I isolate this, you would see that it's only showing the first smoke. So we need to go and in the particle spawn, we'll say sub UV animation. Now if you add it, if you want it to be animating, like creating a sprite sheet which goes from like first sprite to second sprite to third sprite, you will add in particle update, because particle spawn only applies when the particle is getting spawned. So I actually only want it on the particle spawn. If I add it in here, then it will keep changing. I don't want that. So I'll say that I want it to do for this sprite renderer, and instead of linear, I'll say random. So it will basically choose randomly. Okay, so it will choose random smoke particle. Let's hide this, or let's show this, and then take like smoke color. We'll do like random range so that we get 2 smokes. Okay, just play around with the colors until you find something, and then we'll also go to sprite size mode, to random uniform, and maybe choose like 20 to 30. That's way too small. 50 to 80. That's way too big. And you could see it's spawning on there like this. I don't like this color, so let's just play around with this. Okay, for time being, let's just keep it this way. Now what I want to do is I want it to move like this way. So let's just add a vertex force. So again, keep that in mind. If you add in particle spawn, it adds it at the start only, but when you add in particle update, it constantly adds it. So just do this and do fix issue, solve forces and velocity, because this one is responsible for calculating or doing all these effects in every frame. And then I don't know, like play around with the values until you get something that works for you. You could even add it in the particle spawn like this and do fix issue, that is apply initial force. So at this start, it will instantly apply 200 or something like this. If you don't want here, you could even remove it so that it only applies at the start, but then it would not constantly rotate. So I'll just add it at the both. Okay, I'm doing Control Z and it's still not showing. Why is it not showing? Whatever, let's just copy and paste it in here. Now initialize lifetime, it is lasting for 5 seconds. I don't want it to last like this long. So I'll go in here and say that spawn lasts for only 0.5 to 1 second. Okay, I think that's good enough. Just play around with it. Okay, I'm not going to give you like exact values. I hate videos when they do that. I will also make them rotate slightly. So I'll add rotation rate. So sprite rotation rate. and then I'll do random. So instead of making everything rotated perfectly, so all of them rotating perfectly would not look good. So let's do 0.8. So I'll do is range float to negative 50 to 50. So some would move left, some would move right. We can also increase the spawn rate to be 20. Now one more thing is, in this one you could see the smoke actually dissipates nicely. So one thing, simple thing that you could do is fade out, but it doesn't really look good in case of like smokes. So let's say if you do scale color in particle update, because it needs to happen at certain time, right? To float from curve, it is going to fade out as it goes out because it's going from 1 to 0. And if you look at our texture, this one, this is where the value comes. So it goes from 1 to 0, and when anything multiplied by 0 is 0, so at the end we will get 0. So what I would do is you could use this one. Basically it stays 1, which means like no changes, full opacity, and as it goes down it starts going to 0 and fades out. You could do this, but I don't like to use this. It's just a personal preference and it really comes down to what you're using. But for smoke, I don't like to use it. So what I'll do is I'll use a technique called corrosion. And if you want to learn a bit more about corrosion, please watch this video, Shader VFX. And I also have a video on just on alpha corrosion, you could see. And like I said, this is a texture which is 0 to 1 value. So wherever there's white, it's 1. Wherever there's black, it's 0. And there are like slight grayish value, which could be like 0.3, 0.5, whatever, okay? So what would happen if I take this texture and do -1? -1 would turn everything. -1 would turn everything to 0. So 0 minus 1 would give us -1, which is still black, and 1 minus 1 would give us 0, which is black. So if I do 0.1 minus 0.1, you would see that there is slight difference than the original texture. If I do 0.2, 0.5, it starts getting lower and lower. So it is going below 0 to, like it's going like any value that was like 0.1 minus 0.5 would turn to -0.4, which is black. You could obviously add saturate node too if you want to do clamping. Basically any value that turns to like negative value would turn to 0, and any value goes above 1 turns to 1. So like -0.4 would turn to 0, and 1.4 or 1.3 would turn to 1. It's called clamping. Very cheap operation. A quick way to test it is by adding a time node, how it would look in corrosion, and add it in here, but it's not going to look perfect because the time node constantly goes up, which is like a stopwatch. So it's going like 1, 0, from like how you'd use a stopwatch. It goes from 0 to 1 in like milliseconds, then 2, 3, 4, 5. So what we could do is you could use frac node. I don't know if it would be easy to show you in here or not. Let's do debug scalar value. Let's add it in the result. And let's stop previewing this. Okay, so you could see this is how the time node looks. So obviously if you subtract this, it would look weird, but there's a node called frac. If I add it in here, it only takes the decimal point, so it goes from 0 to 0.9999. okay, so this is a quick way to test it. Okay, it's not what we will do, but this is how the distortion would go, or alpha corrosion would go. So what I want to do is I want it to be controlled. Okay, I want to control this manually. I don't want to use time frac value. So what we'll do is we will use a stuff called dynamic parameter. This is nothing but 4 scalar values like this. Okay, so first scalar value, second, third, fourth, and because you could see it's red in color, just like the particle color, it can be controlled via our particle. So the first parameter, will add it in here and say that it is, the first parameter is corrosion, like this, and R, which is the first one, you could say it's in R channel, will do 0. That's like no changes. So anything -0 would give us nothing, the same texture, right? because 5 minus 0 is 5. Once you use this parameter, we can actually go into our mud ball, and I want it to do every frame, right? I don't want to do on just start, I want to do it every frame. So we'll go to particle parameter and add the dynamic material parameter. It automatically adds whatever was using in the material. You could see it automatically added the corrosion channel. So the corrosion channel, if I keep increasing, you could see it goes like this. So we can go in here and say float from curve. You could see it's by normalized age, which means like this way, so 0.8 or 1. So as it goes throughout its age, it's basically dissipating like this. But you could use this one, which would keep it like show full. No, we will not use this one because it is 1, right? And remember, when we do subtract 1, it basically it hides it. We want to do opposite, which is like 0 to 1. It should go 0 to 1. So we'll use this one. And instead of, we will not even use this one. Let's just use this basic one. You could use F to kind of make it place here. So what I'll do is I'll add a key at 0.8, which is like 80% of his lifetime, and turn this to 0. So at the first 80 second, we are just subtracting 0, which basically gives us the same value, and then later we increase it and it starts fading out or like dissipating basically. You could see, you could turn this into auto, and basically play around with this too if you want to smooth it out. And you can see that we get the similar effect like this. Again, play around with the values until it looks perfect to you. Please let me know if you guys want like faster videos, or if you want like videos like this where I try to go in much more depth and detail, explaining some of the math too. So yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Please support me via my Patreon. It helps me run the website and also make videos like this. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.